In business today, three things to know. First, crackdown on coal. The Obama administration throws cold water on one of the top producers of energy in the U.S. The EPA proposes new regulations aimed at cutting carbon emissions, but will they also cut down on jobs? Then, U.S. manufacturing on the comeback trail. The manufacturing numbers are up, and Made in the USA is going on more products. And women and the glass ceiling, how the firing of New York Times editor Jill Abramson is seen by many as business as usual for high-powered female executives. We'll discuss today. Arisexchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. President Obama's strongest action against carbon emissions came Monday with new sweeping regulations aimed at the coal industry. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency proposed to cut emissions 30% by 2030, and the main target, coal plants. Under the new regulations, states have until 2016 to detail plans to increase energy efficiency and change the number of hours coal plants can operate each day. Here's Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Jean McCarthy.
Shaped by public input, by present trends, by proven technologies, as well as a healthy dose of common sense, our plan aims to cut energy waste and leverage cleaner energy sources by doing two things. First, by setting achievable, enforceable state goals to cut carbon pollution per megawatt hour of electricity generated. And second, it's laying out a national framework that gives states the flexibility to chart their own customized path on how they meet their goals.
The new regulations are being criticized by both sides. Environmentalists say this won't reduce global warming because other countries won't follow. And the industry says this is a plan to kill coal and the jobs that come with it. It also warns energy prices are headed up. Lauren Pagel is policy director at Earthworks, joins us from Washington, D.C. Lauren, welcome to Arisexchange.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
The EPA Administrator Gina McCarthy says this is common sense. The goal here to cut by 30% carbon emissions. How are we going to do that? Because saying it so just won't make it so.
That is true. But as the administrator said, this is groundbreaking, but also common sense. It leaves a lot of flexibility for the states to decide how exactly they're going to make this happen. We know that renewable energy is cost effective, and so we think that this is doable and a great step in the right direction.
We know that renewable energy is cost effective, except it hasn't quite risen to the level where it gets the job done. Most of the energy in this country is, in fact, produced by coal. So you need something to replace that, and solar right now isn't going to do it. Wind isn't going to do it. Can we get there in 16 years?
Actually, the technology is there for solar and wind to do it, and the technology is changing every day in terms of how we can get this done using renewable sources. At this point, most of the reason that we're sort of stuck in these old ways with fossil fuels is because there's been a lack of political will to deal with this issue.
If you live in Kentucky today, though, don't you feel like your industry is under assault? Even the Democratic opponent to Mitch McConnell running for Senate says this is, quote, an attack on the coal industry, that she will oppose the plan if elected to the Senate, meaning that the president will lose a Democratic ally there. And the Chamber of Commerce says that this will raise energy costs by $50 billion a year.
Well, if I was living in Kentucky right now, I would be glad that my air was going to be cleaner, that there were going to be new, great jobs created by renewable energy companies, and that we were going to deal with some of these climate change issues, and that I wouldn't be seeing a Hurricane Sandy coming my way anytime soon.
Well, okay, there's a lot of debate as to whether global warming caused Hurricane Sandy, and Hurricane Sandy didn't hit Kentucky. I mean, the argument is that these are rules being promulgated by Easterners who do not necessarily feel the impact of the jobs lost. I guess what probably is missing in this equation is a real path of what will replace jobs that are lost. I mean, what is the plan to create the new energy and the new jobs, and to give states like Kentucky the information and resources available to do that?
Well, the renewable energy sector actually created 800,000 new jobs in 2013, and it's on pace to create even more this year. And so that's really where the jobs are coming from. We're transitioning our economy from something that's based on dirty fossil fuels that we know isn't good for our health and isn't good for the climate, for something that can create even more jobs, which is renewable energy.
The president talked about asthma today, though. You know, here's where some of the credibility gaps may come in. You know, we do need to do something about the climate. Obviously, we do face global warming, but there seems to be sort of a new bugaboo thrown in every single time, and asthma one of them today. Shouldn't the message just be that we need to improve the environment and reduce carbon emissions? Doesn't the message get muddled?
Well, I think that improving the environment and carbon emissions is really important, but people do need to understand that coal-fired power plants do cause these types of health issues like asthma, and everyone wants cleaner air, and this rule is going to get us there.
Do you think the coal industry has done any sort of a good job, though, over the past decades? You've seen the commercials for, quote, clean coal, and maybe that means maybe slightly cleaner coal. I don't know. Do you give them any credit for trying to improve what they're doing?
I think most of what the coal industry has done over the past decade has been because they were required to. And, you know, they are, you know, they have to answer their shareholders. They want to make a buck. That's their bottom line. And if they're going to make any of these changes, they really need to be enforceable regulations like this one.
Lauren Pagel, Policy Director at Earthworks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Turning to the markets now, record highs for the Dow and S&P 500 despite a less than pretty start of the day. A mistake by the Institute of Supply Management sent markets down temporarily. Initially, the ISM reported that manufacturing activity came in well below estimates. Then the group corrected the data to report that the number beat estimates. And then the group said, never mind, we're going to correct it again to say that it was a miss, but barely. So, with that said, the ISM index, which measures manufacturing activity, now stands at 55.4. Anything above 50 is considered growth. We'll talk more about the number with Jim Awad coming up. But first, let's talk about the other numbers on Wall Street for the markets. It was the second record day for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, up 26.46 to 16,743.63. The S&P 500, third straight record day, closing at 1924.97. The Nasdaq did pull back a little bit, down 5.5 to 42.37. Taking a look at stocks we're watching today. According to a report in the Wall Street Journal, Google is planning to spend more than $1 billion on a fleet of 180 small, high-capacity satellites to beam internet access to unconnected parts of the world. Google closing down 770. Marriott International Hotels rolling out a new social media and marketing campaign to attract more customers from the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. It's called Love Travels, will feature images wrapped around 5 hotels in Washington, D.C., and print ads in many other U.S. cities. Marriott closing down 6 cents. And Delta Airlines said it ordered 15 new Airbus aircraft for delivery in 2018, totaling $1.65 billion. The aircraft will replace similar domestic planes being retired from the current fleet. Delta up 85 cents to 40.76. And a look at commodities. Gold pulling back to $290 and oil down to $108.86. And Jim Awad, chairman of Plumsoll Mark Capitals, back here on Arisexchange to talk about all these numbers. And I do want to talk about the manufacturing number. First, from a trader standpoint, and you're not a trader, I understand, a long-term investor, you kind of live by the sword and die by the sword, right? And so you get the wrong numbers, and then you kind of get soaked. But I imagine if you're a quick trader, you get the right numbers, and you're making money on all ends of this argument.
Well, you're at risk if you're trading based on short-term numbers like that. Unless you're very nimble, have a quick execution capability, you're at risk for something like this. And some people made money, some people lost money, but I've never seen anything like this in all my years in the business.
Well, what happened today? Because this is a very respected and very important number.
Right. They say they had a software glitch and it did the numbers wrong. At least they were quick to admit it, but then they had to revise it again. I would say their credibility was damaged by this. Nobody won, everybody lost by this event.
Maybe they all hit the bar a little bit earlier today to get out of town, right? Well, that happens. Okay, yeah. Mistakes happen in data. So let's take for the assumption that the final number is actually the number. Where do you see manufacturing headed in the country? Because it will directly relate to gross domestic product.
Yeah, and it was solidly above 50, which means that it's expanding. And what you see in manufacturing in this country is increasing at a measured rate, nothing fabulous because businesses are not capital spending that much. But the economy is recovering. There is some manufacturing that's coming back to the United States now because wages in China have gone up and our electricity costs have come down, so it's more competitive to do it here. Most of that manufacturing is going to states with low taxes and non-union states. So you are seeing manufacturing growing, but it's not gangbusters.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that they're coming back to the United States because this has really been a sea change. It wasn't that many years ago that we said it's going to China and it's going to Mexico, and we're starting to see it kind of being repatriatized. And as you mentioned, in states, and I think the key here is regulatory-friendly states.
Yes, absolutely. I would add that. Typically, states with low taxes have favorable regulatory environments. It's the same political climate that would create both. So, yes, they're coming back, but they're coming back in certain industries, in certain states. It's certainly a better situation than it was 5 years ago.
Well, I hope that pressures the other states, by the way, because now they're all going to compete against each other to maybe start rethinking things. And we're starting to see that a little bit here in New York. The housing market, what are your thoughts here? Coming back a little bit stronger? Because it's kind of like,
It's okay. Now, what you've done is you've taken the investor group that bought houses out of foreclosure in the bottom. They're done.
They're done.
They're renting or maybe even selling. The very high end is doing well because the rich have gotten richer in this recovery. The entry level is still constrained because wages haven't grown that much, and banks are not that easy with mortgages. And in certain areas, the investor class has brought the prices up so much that the houses aren't affordable.
I wonder when you talk about this income inequality, where you I think see it is in the housing market a little bit.
Well, you see it in housing and you see it in retail, you see it in wages, but you certainly do see it in housing, luxury housing. Just look at Manhattan, look at anywhere, any city in the country. The very high end is flying off the shelf, so to speak, and the middle and low, it's more realistically priced.
I want to talk about the markets. There's an old saying, sell in May and go away. I think I have that right.
It's never that simple.
Yeah.
It's never that simple.
Because if it was, we'd all make money.
Right. Look, right now, the economy is growing fast enough for profits to grow, but not so fast as to bring the Fed into action in terms of raising rates or having inflationary pressures. So right now, the line of least resistance is up, but you have to recognize that stocks are not cheap anymore and that there's speculation in the credit markets equal to 2007, not in housing, but in the credit markets.
And the risk this summer, if you are a trader and not investor, is that if there's light volume and you start getting some selling pressure, you could get a pretty large sell.
Well, and I'll tell you what would cause that. If you got some spookiness on inflation, all of a sudden those numbers look bad and the Treasury, 10-year Treasury went back to 3%, that would give you your selling.
Okay. Jimmy Awad, thank you so much.
Always my pleasure.
Always good. Coming up, the firing of a New York Times editor has once again raised the issue of equal pay for women, why more of them are not in the C-suite offices. You're watching Arisexchange.
I think news does make people put things in black and white terms just so that they have a dividing line between what their viewers like and dislike.
When they see a person of color, they either think that they're not going to do anything, they're either on drugs or they got pregnant at an early age, and I just want to say that that's not true.
It tends to reflect more the interests of the upper income people and the upper income interests.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
Welcome back to Arisexchange this Monday. Time now for our business ticker, stories making news around the world. Apple's annual Worldwide Developers Conference kicked off today in San Francisco. The tech giant is unveiling what's next for the company with announcements heavily skewed to the software side. Some of the highlights at this year's 5-day conference include a redesign of Mac software, updating on the iPhone and iPad operating systems, new health and home apps as well, and given the acquisition of Beats headphones, Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre are also expected to be on hand. Apple shares did close a little bit down today following the news. The FBI may have hit a snag in protecting the nation from golfer Phil Mickelson. This weekend, Mickelson was named as part of an insider trading investigation that also targeted activist investor Carl Icahn. It was alleged that Icahn may have passed on insider information to Mickelson and another golfing partner, Las Vegas gambler William Walters. The fact that news of the probe leaked, however, may mean the government can't deploy secret wiretaps. Also, legal experts say the statute of limitations is getting close to running out. Criminal and civil investigators are examining whether Icahn tipped Walters off about his plans relating to stocks of several companies, including Clorox. So far, no one has been charged with any wrongdoing. Fortune magazine has released its annual Fortune 500 list, ranking the largest companies in the U.S. by revenue. Retail giant Walmart once again beat out ExxonMobil for this year's #1 ranking with revenue in excess of $476 billion. They were followed by Chevron and Berkshire Hathaway. And Apple this year has taken the #5 spot with $171 billion in revenue. That's up from #6 in last year's rankings. Although there are more female executives in corporate America than ever before, women still have a long way to go. Right now, there are only 25 female chief executive officers among the Fortune 500 companies. And in terms of salaries, the highest paid female CEO still made less than half of what was given to the highest paid man, underscoring that there is a gender gap that continues to plague women at all levels of the U.S. workforce. To talk more about the disparity is Kathy Camilli. She is an independent board director. Kathy, welcome to Arisexchange.
Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Let's talk about some of these issues, because the Jill Abramson issue with the New York Times sort of sparked it. And there's some questions as to whether this was a culture clash and whether she simply wasn't an effective manager. But where do you think we are with women on pay issues when it comes to high-level executive women, which certainly doesn't even address the working class women?
Well, as you just mentioned, 25 CEOs in the Fortune 500 are women. And of the second tier, you didn't mention that there are another 25 in the Fortune 1000. So 50 women are CEOs. We've certainly made a lot of progress from just 10, 15 years ago, but it's slow improvement. It's slow improvement.
So what is sort of the drag here on women rising to the top? Is it the arguments that they have taken time off to raise families?
It's mostly that they've taken time off.
And you think that's a legitimate one?
Oh, it's definitely a legitimate one. There have been new programs that have been started to on-ramp women back into the labor force. If you look at the Work Life Foundation, Sylvia Hewlett's foundation, she's done work on this. There have been programs that have been started, a program called iRelaunch, to bring women who have taken time off from work back into the workforce, and those programs are working.
And how do women get into those programs then? You know?
You can go to the website and sign up for a conference, and you just go, and there are employers there who would like to hire you.
Don't you think, because we talk about the CEOs, but when you talk about the board makeups are still white male? And
yes, that's an even slower statistic. I would say that we've had more improvement at the CEO and executive ranks. About 16% of all public company boards in the U.S. have women. So it's
16%.
16, 1/6.
Have any women?
Have women on the board, and that hasn't changed too much in the last 10 years, just by a few percent.
But isn't this a drag? I mean, Carl Icahn, whether you agree with him on many points or not, has had an interesting line I heard, which is hiring the CEO is you hire the president of the frat. It's the guy who shakes the most hands and gets along. And so because the boards are dominated by men, don't they naturally look at men?
Yes.
And there have been some high sort of female flameouts, which unfortunately has tainted.
Yes, but here's the new research that's come out of Catalyst and Credit Suisse. The new research says that the profitability of companies improves when you have 3 or more women on the board. So there's your statistical data point. That's the data point that we've been waiting for. And things are changing. Things are changing. More women are getting on boards. More women are being looked at by search firms to be on boards.
Why do you think the profit is increased when women are on board? Besides the fact that more than half the women buy products.
Well, you have more diversity of opinion. You have women have a different perspective on the workforce, on the world, and you're bringing that dimension and different kinds of experiences, and you're bringing that to the boardroom. They also have a tendency to be a little bit more outspoken, less, kind of will go with the pack.
Clubby, right?
Less clubby, less clubby. Yeah. Will not necessarily vote with the pack, and a little bit more outspoken. It can prevent companies from taking wrong turns.
When you look at someone like Mary Barra, who is the CEO of General Motors.
Yes, on the hot seat.
On the hot seat. Heralded when she came in, and now facing a real crisis.
Yes.
I imagine that has to be a positive effect, but I'm wondering how you see her role and how she's been treated in the media.
Well, that's an interesting question. They say that the heads of media organizations are mostly male, and so that determines how women are viewed in the media, and hopefully that will change. But Mary is certainly under the gun, and you know, she'll have to deal with that crisis. I think what's kind of ironic is that some of these crisis situations, usually when there's a handoff to a CEO, there can be a handoff to a female CEO because she'll deal with the crisis better than a male.
Finally, are there good mentors for women managers? Because, you know, sometimes they've been criticized. You look at Jill Abramson. I don't know if a man would have been, you know, at least outspokenly fired for basically the way she interacted with people.
Well, you have to find your mentors within the organization. I was very lucky on Wall Street during a 25-year career to always have male mentors. It depends on your organization.
Okay, Kathy Camilli, thank you so much.
Pleasure to be here.
Ahead, asking a 9-year-old to pay so she can go to the potty. Our liquid lunch is ahead. And who will be our favorite person of the day here on Arisexchange?
If I was building my own news network, first thing I think I'd want high-quality reporters, very educated, intelligent people.
Hello, I'm Francesca Maxime.
I'm Julien Phillips.
I'm Wendy Gillette.
I'm Sophia Songhai.
I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey. Thank you for joining us here in New York City.
I would like to see more people of color represented in high positions in media.
We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well.
People need to understand the problems that are going on in the community are much closer than we actually think they are.
Kayla Phillips is one of the shoppers who is suing Barney's, and she is here with her attorney. What is it that you want from them?
Not to judge every African-American person that comes in their store.
Time for liquid lunch, things that make us want to drink. At a Washington State elementary school, a parent is furious that her third-grade daughter was denied use of the bathroom because the girl could not pay for the privilege of using the potty. And that resulted in the girl having an accident in her pants. A teacher at the Mill Plain Elementary School implemented a class reward system where students would earn fake money that they could then spend on various items, including apparently using the bathroom. It gets better. After the girl wet herself, the school demanded that she write an apology. The girl's mother pulled her out of school for a week, and when she returned, the principal scolded the 9-year-old. 2 parents have filed complaints, and the mother of the 9-year-old is considering suing. And that takes us to our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Today, it is a bird-brained robber who decided to friend his victim on Facebook, leading to his arrest. Police say 28-year-old Riley Mullins robbed a woman while she waited for a ferry in Bremerton, Washington. The woman was hit on the head and her iPod and purse were taken. During the assault, she noticed that the man had a triangle tattoo on his neck. Well, the next day, get this, she got a friend request on Facebook from that man. She noticed the triangle tattoo on his neck. Then she called police. Mullen is charged with second-degree robbery. No word if the woman then defriended him on Facebook, but he is our favorite person of the day. Coming up next, when celebrities run amok, they need someone to fix their brand. Our corner office is next here on Arisexchange.
Looking at mainstream news stations where only you have a very small minority of people of color being newscasters and actually having prominent roles in the media.
In a newsroom in the United States, maybe 10% of decision makers come from communities of diversity. That's not right.
Well, diversity is important because the more complete the news is, the more accurate a picture you're getting of the world, and the more you can form an accurate opinion of things.
The vision here is not just to tell the main stories of the day, but to tell the news that other organizations don't tell, and tell it in a way that people like me, people that look like me, that look like you, are interested in.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
In tonight's Corner Office, protecting the value of a brand, a personal brand. That job can be extremely tough, especially when your clients are a bunch of whacked out celebrities. Our next guest knows that better than anyone else. He has made a name for himself by doing just that in protecting brands for more than a decade. Trevor Julien is a brand and crisis manager for several top celebrities. He joins us now to tell us about the secrets of his success in keeping the celebrities on at least the, as we say in the aviation business, the shiny side up and not rolling over. Julien, Trevor, welcome to our
Thank you for having me, Andrew. A pleasure to be here.
You know, so let's just talk in general.
Yes.
Because celebrities are going to be the most challenging. And I remember I was interviewing Martha Stewart long before she got into trouble. And I said, you know, your company is your whole brand. It's your personal brand. What happens if something happens and then something happens? And I wasn't just smart that I figured that out. It was a question I was going to ask anyway.
Right.
So how do you advise celebrities before they get into trouble?
Well, you know, part of my job is being able to out a fire before the fire even starts. You know, so first and foremost, there has to be 100% disclosure between the client and the representative. That's the only way I can help.
But do you get that?
Well, I try to work with people that will give me that 100% disclosure. It's a relationship. It's a business as well, but, you know, it's personal involved as well, and, you know, full disclosure always helps my job as far as solving the problem.
Justin Bieber is apologizing for using some racial epithets about 4 years ago on a video, and Justin Bieber is somebody who's been all over the map lately. Where is the line between being your brand is being a bad boy and really being a bad boy that damages your brand?
It's a very, very thin line, you know, and a lot of times you can work a decade to build a brand and your brand can evaporate in 2 seconds based off of, you know, bad judgment. You know, so it's a very fine line, and, you know, you have to walk very narrow, and that's why people like me are here, to kind of reel you back in, to assess what will happen, what are the pros and cons involved in whatever decision is involved with what you're doing.
Who gets into troubles in the celebrity world? Is it the Justin Biebers on the younger side, or is it the older individuals?
Trouble is like a bullet. It has no name on it. If you're in the public spotlight, you know, depending on your brand, where you are, a lot of times celebrities find themselves in predicaments, a lot of times so because of the company they keep. You know, that's why someone like me is here too. A lot of times you have to go into someone's camp and clean house. You know, remove all of the cancer that is in that camp that can allow this celebrity to actually be who they're supposed to be in the public light.
You represent someone from the LA Clippers.
Yes.
Okay. Who do you represent?
Matt Barnes.
Okay. When the whole issue with Donald Sterling came up, what was your advice to him?
Well, you know, Matt is a very, very outspoken person. You know, he's very, very hard on the court, but off the court, he is a great guy, a family guy. And, you know, it was a very emotional time, not only for Matt, but his teammates and the families as well, you know. So the best thing at that time was to keep quiet and focus on the task at hand, which was
they were in the playoffs at the time.
You know.
And when you run into a problem with a celebrity, who do you go in the celebrity sort of sphere of the people they hang out with to maybe help them? Is it family members? Is it friends?
It depends on what the problem is. You know, a lot of times you go directly to the person. The person, the celebrity, is the one who has ownership of their brand. Right. You know, it's a business and personal as well. So it starts with that person. And like I said earlier, 100% disclosure.
Isn't part of the conversation, though, that when they build a brand, it's not just about impacting them anymore, that there are people throughout the entire chain within their business that is impacted by their actions, people who do not necessarily earn their kind of money?
Correct. You know, everyone is involved, and that's why, you know, it's so important as far as your actions, how you behave in public, the company you keep, and, you know, whatever your motivation is, it's very important to keep all of that very, very tight-knit.
When things go south very quickly on some, maybe not the Donald Sterling because maybe he can't recover, but let's say the Paula Deen, what is your first piece of advice?
You call on Jesus. And then you call me.
And does Jesus answer?
Most of the times he does.
Because you answer.
Yes. You know, in a situation like that, you can never be too quick to react. Okay. You know, you have to assess the situation and assess the scope of it and exactly what needs to be done in order to get rid of the problem. You know, so it starts with the person, and you have to have full disclosure first. Full disclosure, and then you cannot be afraid of the what-ifs, you know, and be fearful of what can possibly happen.
And we have about 20 seconds left. Have you found, specifically in this country, that almost anyone, providing you don't kill someone, can recover?
I think that anyone can recover, yes. Again, it's something that's very strategic that has to be done with your team, with your representative, in order to get you back on your feet.
Okay, Trevor, Julien, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tomorrow on Arisexchange, we'll have more insight about Apple's developer conference in San Francisco and what to expect for the rest of the week. Let's take a look at the final numbers on Wall Street. A record for both the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500. It's the second straight record for the Dow, the third for the S&P 500. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arisexchange. We will see you on Tuesday.